Chosen one, why does Monday morning feel like a funeral you attend every single week? Why do you open your eyes and immediately feel the weight of something you can't name pressing down on your chest like a stone? Why after 70, 80, maybe 90 years of waking up, does hope still feel like a stranger in your own bedroom? Stop right there. What I'm about to tell you will shatter everything you thought you knew about this coming Monday. This isn't just another sunrise. This isn't just another week beginning while your body aches and your spirit whispers, "How much longer, Lord?" Chosen one, this Monday is not just a date on your calendar. It is a divine appointment. A shift heaven has been orchestrating for years, perhaps decades, while you suffered in silence, wondering if God had forgotten your address. Listen to me carefully. Because of what you finally realized, everything changes. But I'll reveal what that realization truly is in just a moment. First, you need to understand something that will cut straight to your soul. You've carried burdens quietly, haven't you? Burdens no one sees. You've survived seasons you never told anyone about, nights when you begged God to either answer or take you home. You've buried dreams, buried loved ones, buried pieces of yourself until you wondered if anything was left worth saving. But God says something tonight that will shake you to your core. This Monday, the weight begins to lift. Psalm 35 declares, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning." How many nights have you endured, beloved? How many Mondays have you woken up without hope, dragging yourself through another week, wondering if this is all there is? This Monday is different. Before we go deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Holy Spirit lead your heart. But hear me clearly, this is not just information. This is intervention from heaven itself. This Monday, this moment, this realization that's been building in your spirit like pressure in your chest, it's all converging into something you cannot yet see, but your soul already knows is coming. If you feel this stirring already, if something in your chest just shifted when I said, "This Monday," don't scroll past this. Stay with me. Because what I'm about to reveal will explain why you felt so different lately, why the spiritual atmosphere around you has been changing, and why heaven has marked this specific Monday as your turning point. The question is, are you ready to discover what you finally realized that changed everything? How many decades have you spent believing that silence from heaven meant rejection? How many sleepless nights have you laid there at Thiam, whispering prayers into the darkness, wondering if God was even listening anymore? How many years, be honest with me now? How many years have you carried the secret shame that maybe, just maybe, you did something so wrong that he turned his face away from you forever? Listen to me, beloved. What I'm about to tell you will break something inside you, but not in the way you think. It will break the lie. It will shatter the deception. It will crack open the prison cell you didn't even know you were living in. You finally realized something this week that heaven has been trying to whisper to you for years. You finally understood deep in that sacred place where only truth can live, that God never forgot you. Not for 1 second. Not for 1 heartbeat. Not during that decade when you buried 3 people you loved. Not during those financial years when you couldn't afford both medicine and groceries. Not during that season when your own children stopped calling. He never forgot you. But here's what broke the cycle, chosen one. Here's what changed everything. You thought you were waiting on him. You thought your life was on pause while heaven figured out what to do with you. You thought those 70, 80, 90 years of struggle meant you were stuck in some cosmic waiting room, watching everyone else get called in while your name never came up. But that wasn't waiting. That was preparation. Oh, can you feel that? That shift happening in your chest right now? That's recognition. That's your spirit finally understanding what your mind has been too wounded to accept. Every closed door wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Every unanswered prayer wasn't silence, it was not yet, my child, not yet. Think about your life for a moment. Go back to that young version of you who thought you had it all figured out. 25 years old, 30 years old, full of fire and dreams and certainty. If God had given you everything you prayed for back then, would you have been ready? Would you have had the wisdom to handle it? Would you have possessed the character to steward it? No, beloved. And God loved you too much to set you up for destruction. Your life has been a long winter, hasn't it? Year after year of cold. Year after year of barrenness. Year after year of looking at the frozen ground of your circumstances and wondering if anything would ever grow again. You watched spring come for other people, their marriages bloomed, their children flourished. Their bank accounts multiplied while your winter just kept going. But this Monday something shifts. The first crack of spring appears. Not because the temperature suddenly changed, but because you finally realized that winter was never punishment. Winter was preparation. The ground had to freeze so the old roots could die. The cold had to come so the soil could rest and renew itself. Ecclesiastes 1 says it plainly, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Your winter had a purpose. Your waiting had a reason. And now, right now, this very Monday, the season is turning. You see, heaven sometimes waits for maturity, not age. God wasn't checking your birth certificate to see if you were old enough. He was checking your heart to see if you were ready enough. He was watching to see if the fire of entitlement would burn out so the flame of surrender could ignite. He was waiting for you to stop demanding answers and start trusting his timing. And something shifted this week, didn't it? You can't quite put your finger on when or how, but you felt it. That release, that exhale, that quiet moment when you stopped fighting and started flowing. When you stopped asking why and started saying yes. That was the first realization. The one that broke the cycle of spiritual desperation you've been trapped in for decades. But beloved, if this is speaking to your spirit right now, if something inside you is trembling with recognition, I need you to do something. Type these 3 words in the comments. I receive it, not for me, not for the algorithm, for you. Because when you declare reception with your mouth, heaven recognizes agreement. When you speak it into existence, you're not just acknowledging truth, you're activating it. The first realization has cracked the prison door open. But this is only the beginning. Because there's a second realization coming, one that will break chains you didn't even know were still locked around your wrists. Chains that have been there so long you thought they were just part of your skin. Chains that have whispered lies so consistently you believed they were telling the truth. This second realization is more powerful than the first, more dangerous to the enemy, more threatening to every force that has worked overtime to keep you small, silent, and defeated. And when you understand what it is, when it clicks in your spirit with the force of lightning striking dry ground, everything you thought you knew about this Monday, about your purpose, about why you're still breathing at your age, will suddenly make perfect sense. But we're not there yet. First, you had to understand that God never forgot you. Now, you need to discover what he was actually doing while you thought he was distant. Are you ready to see what heaven has been building in the secret place? Chosen ones, if you've ever felt like life attacked you harder than others, if you've ever wondered why your road was steeper, your losses deeper, your nights longer, stay with me. Because what I'm about to reveal will explain 70, 80, maybe 90 years of suffering you thought was random. Life didn't just happen to you. There has been a spiritual assignment to break you. Let me say that again so it sinks into the marrow of your bones. Your struggles weren't accidents. Your pain wasn't coincidence. Your battles weren't bad luck or poor choices or divine neglect. There has been, from the moment you drew your first breath, a calculated, deliberate, strategic warfare designed specifically to destroy you before you ever discovered who you really are. You think I'm being dramatic? Then explain this to me. Why have you survived things that killed others? Why are you still standing when people half your age with half your problems gave up years ago? Why does your spirit still burn with questions, with hunger, with this relentless sense that there's more even when your body is tired and the world tells you to just fade quietly into the background? Because hell recognized what heaven planted in you before you even knew it was there. Think about Job for a moment. This wasn't some fairy tale. This was a real man, blameless, upright, fearing God and shunning evil. The Bible says he was the greatest man in all the East. Successful, blessed, protected. But do you know what was happening in the courts of heaven while Job was living his ordinary life? Satan himself was arguing about him. Job chapter 1 verse 8, the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? Consider that." God pointed Job out. Why? Because Job carried something so valuable, so threatening to the kingdom of darkness, that hell mobilized everything it had to take him down. You've lived Job's story, haven't you? Maybe not his exact circumstances, but his confusion, his midnight questions, his desperate prayers that seemed to echo in empty rooms. God, why me? What did I do? Why won't you answer? But here's what Job didn't know in his agony, and here's what you're just beginning to understand. The warfare wasn't proof that God had abandoned him. The warfare was proof that God trusted him. Hell doesn't waste ammunition on empty vessels. Satan doesn't deploy his fiercest weapons against ordinary people living ordinary lives. Your sensitivity wasn't weakness, it was discernment before its time. Listen to me carefully, beloved. All those years they told you that you were too emotional, too sensitive, too intense. They were wrong. Dead wrong. What they called dysfunction was actually divine frequency. You weren't broken. You were tuned to a channel most people can't even detect. You felt things before they happened. You knew when something was wrong in a room before anyone spoke a word. You carried burdens for people you'd never met. You wept over injustices happening thousands of miles away. And they mocked you for it. They medicated you for it. They told you to toughen up, grow up, get over it. But God was saying, no, that's my prophet. That's my intercessor. That's my watchman on the wall who sees what's coming before the storm clouds even form. Your entire life has been preparation, not punishment. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every financial collapse taught you that your security isn't in bank accounts, it's in the one who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. Every health scare taught you that your body is temporary, but your spirit is eternal. Every sleepless night crying out to God taught you how to pray with an authority that shakes the gates of hell itself. You weren't suffering for nothing, dear one. You were being forged, refined, purified, prepared for an assignment so significant that it required decades of testing to ensure you could handle it without being destroyed by pride, corrupted by power, or seduced by comfort. The enemy has thrown everything at you: depression, disease, divorce, debt, disappointment, despair, wave after wave after wave, hoping that eventually you'd break, that eventually you'd curse God and die, just like Job's wife suggested, that eventually you'd give up, shut up, and stop being a threat to his kingdom. But you're still here. After everything hell has hurled at you, you're still breathing, still believing, still fighting, still carrying that flicker of hope that refuses to be extinguished no matter how fierce the winds blow. Do you know what that makes you? Dangerous. Absolutely dangerous to the forces of darkness. And this Monday, that warfare hits its expiration date. I'm not speaking poetically. I'm not offering you religious comfort food to make you feel better for an hour. I'm telling you that something is shifting in the spiritual realm right now. The storm clouds that have hung over your life for decades are finally running out of rain. The weapons that have been formed against you are losing their power. The assignments that have tormented you are being recalled by heaven's decree, because you finally realized something that changes everything, and that realization, that awakening that's been building in your spirit like thunder before lightning, is about to manifest in ways you cannot yet imagine. But here's what you need to understand as we move forward. The warfare you've endured wasn't just about surviving. It was about becoming. Becoming someone who knows God not just as creator but as deliverer. Not just as provider but as protector. Not just as father but as fighter who goes to war on your behalf. So tell me now that you know the warfare was never random, now that you understand your pain had purpose. Are you ready to discover what you're being prepared for? You've been staring at that door for decades, haven't you? The door to peace. The door to purpose. The door to the life God whispered about when you were young and still believed miracles were meant for people like you. You've stood there, hand trembling, reaching for the handle 1,000 times. But something always stopped you. You told yourself it was locked. You convinced yourself God was testing you with delay. You believed the door would open someday when you were finally worthy enough, healed enough, perfect enough. But what if I told you something that's going to drop you to your knees right where you're sitting? The door was never locked. You were. Let that sink into the deepest part of your spirit. The door you've been waiting on, praying about, crying over for 30, 40, 50 years. It's been open this entire time. What you thought was a locked door from heaven was actually a locked mind inside you. A mind that stopped believing. A mind that learned to survive instead of soar. A mind that traded expectation for existence. This Monday you finally realize the truth, and that realization is about to change everything. You see, beloved, somewhere along your journey, pain taught you to protect yourself. That's not wrong, that's human. When your spouse walked out, you locked the door on trust. When your children disappointed you, you locked the door on hope. When the church hurt you, you locked the door on community. When the doctor gave you that diagnosis, you locked the door on dreams. One by one, hurt by hurt, disappointment by disappointment, you built a fortress around your heart and called it wisdom. You mistook caution for discernment. You confused fear with prudence. You renamed your trauma being realistic, because it hurt less than admitting you'd stopped believing God could still do the impossible in your life. But here's what breaks my heart. Fear disguised itself as wisdom, and you bought the lie. Disappointment dressed up as caution, and you let it move into your mind and set up permanent residence. Delay whispered that it was actually denial, and you started agreeing with it. Listen to me carefully. When you were 25 and believed God for miracles, people called you naive. When you were 45 and still believed, they called you foolish. When you hit 65 and kept praying, they called you desperate. So you stopped reaching for that door handle. You stopped believing it would ever turn. You stopped trusting that what God promised could actually manifest in your natural life. The door didn't change, you did. Romans 10:2 says, "Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." Do you hear that word? Renewing. Not replacing, not erasing, renewing. Because your mind has been shaped by this world's disappointments, sculpted by its betrayals, molded by its limitations. And this Monday, this sacred Monday that heaven has marked on its calendar, your mind begins to unclench. Can you feel it happening even now? That tightness in your chest that's been there so long you forgot it wasn't normal. It's starting to loosen. That grip on your throat every time you dared to hope for something better. It's beginning to release. That weight on your shoulders that made you believe your season of breakthrough had expired. It's lifting. This Monday, your spirit reopens. And when your spirit reopens, beloved, the door responds. You want to know why you haven't been able to step into what God promised. It's not because you weren't anointed enough. It's not because you didn't pray hard enough. It's not because you missed your window. It's because you've been pushing on a door that opens inward, and your mind was standing in the way. But what happens when you finally step back? What happens when you finally renew your thinking? What happens when you finally align your mind with heaven's truth instead of earth's trauma? The door swings wide open, effortlessly, suddenly, supernaturally. What you couldn't step into for years, you will walk into effortlessly this Monday. Not because the door changed, not because God finally decided you were ready, but because you finally realized that the only thing standing between you and your promise was a mindset that didn't match your calling. You were called to abundance, but you were thinking scarcity. You were called to breakthrough, but you were thinking survival. You were called to overflow, but you were thinking just enough. You were called to victory, but you were thinking endurance. This Monday, heaven recalibrates your mind to match your calling. This Monday, the door that's been waiting for you finally gets the one thing it needed, a renewed mind willing to walk through it. If this hits your spirit right now, if you feel something unlocking in your chest that's been sealed for decades, declare it out loud. This is my Monday. Because what I'm about to show you next will reveal exactly what's waiting on the other side of that door, and why the enemy fought so hard to keep your mind locked. You know what's been happening to you lately, don't you? Things that confused you for decades are suddenly crystal clear. Problems that seemed impossible now have obvious solutions appearing in your mind like divine downloads. You're waking up with answers you didn't have when you went to sleep. That's not age bringing wisdom, beloved. That's heaven opening your spiritual eyes because the shift has already begun. Listen to me carefully. This Monday isn't coming to start something new. This Monday is coming to confirm what God has already been doing in the invisible realm while you thought nothing was happening. While you were waiting, wondering, questioning if your prayers were bouncing off the ceiling, heaven was moving pieces into position. Do you remember Exodus 4:4-3? Moses stood at the Red Sea with 2 million terrified people behind him and Pharaoh's army charging forward. And he said something that will change how you see this Monday. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Stand still. Not work harder. Not figure it out. Stand still and watch God move. That's what's happening right now in your life. Let me tell you the signs that prove the shift is already in motion. First, sudden clarity. Things that tormented your mind for years, decisions you couldn't make, situations you couldn't understand, people you couldn't figure out, suddenly everything makes sense. It's like someone turned on the lights in a room you've been stumbling through in darkness for decades. You're not losing your mind, chosen one. You're gaining divine perspective. Second, old temptations are losing their power. That addiction that gripped you, that bitterness that owned you, that fear that controlled you, suddenly, it doesn't have the same pull anymore. You're not white-knuckling your way through resistance. The desire itself is changing. 1 John 5:4 says, "This is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith." Your faith has been fighting battles in secret, and this Monday, the victory becomes visible. Third, your sleep feels different. Maybe you're resting deeper than you have in years. Or maybe you're waking up at specific times to aim for, and instead of anxiety, you feel God's presence. Divine rest is coming over you because Psalm 22 and Psalm 2 promises, He giveth His beloved sleep. God is restoring what worry stole, what grief consumed, what time seemed to erase. Fourth, closed doors don't hurt anymore. A year ago, when that door slammed shut, you wept for weeks. But now you look at closed doors and feel nothing but peace. You're not becoming cold, dear one. You're becoming discerning. You're finally understanding that God's no is protection, not rejection. Every closed door has been saving you from settling for less than His best. Fifth, people from your past are either resurfacing or disappearing. Old friends are calling out of nowhere. Family members who haven't spoken to you in years are suddenly reaching out. Or the opposite is happening. People you thought would be there forever are quietly exiting your life without drama, without explanation. This is divine alignment. God is repositioning your relationships because He's about to use you in ways that require the right people in the right places. Sixth, your spirit feels lighter. That heaviness you've carried for so long, the burden that made every step feel like walking through mud, it's lifting. You might not even realize it's happening until you notice you're breathing easier, thinking clearer, smiling more. Isaiah 10:10 declares, "The yoke shall be destroyed because of the anointing." The anointing on this season of your life is breaking yokes you've carried since childhood. Seventh, synchronicities are increasing. You think of someone and they call. You need something and it appears. You pray about a situation and the answer shows up the same day. These aren't coincidences, beloved. These are confirmations. God is showing you that He's orchestrating your life with precision, that nothing, absolutely nothing, is random anymore. Can you feel it? Can you sense that something massive is building? This Monday is not the ending of a chapter. It is the beginning of fulfillment. Everything you've prayed for, cried for, waited for, it's been incubating in the invisible realm, and this Monday marks the moment when heaven says, Now is when the invisible becomes visible. But here's what most people miss. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. This shift isn't happening because you finally got strong enough or good enough or spiritual enough. This shift is happening because you finally realized something that changed everything. You finally realized you were never fighting alone. Every battle you thought you were losing, God was fighting it with you. Every night you cried yourself to sleep, He was collecting those tears in bottles. Every moment you wanted to quit, He was whispering, "Just one more day. Just hold on one more day." And you did, didn't you? You held on, you survived, you're still here. If you're ready for the shift, hit like so this message reaches another soul who needs to know their Monday is marked by heaven. But now I need to tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. Because this realization, this truth you finally understood, it didn't just change your future. It rewrote your past. Chosen one, I need to tell you something that might shake you to your core. Right before God shifts your life, right before breakthrough arrives, the enemy launches his most vicious attack. Not because you're losing, because he knows he's about to lose you forever. Have you noticed it? The strange heaviness that's descended over your life in recent weeks. The way your body feels more tired than usual, even though you're doing the same things you've always done. The way sleep brings no rest, and waking brings no relief. That's not age catching up with you, beloved. That's warfare. Let me ask you something that cuts deep. Why is it that just when you started feeling hopeful again, just when something in your spirit began to stir after years of numbness, suddenly the loneliness got worse? Why did memories you thought you'd buried start rising up at 3 in the morning, replaying every regret, every failure, every moment you wish you could take back? Why did people you haven't thought about in decades suddenly appear in your dreams, bringing back pain you thought was healed? Why did your children seem more distant this week than they did last month? Why did that health issue flare up right when you were starting to believe for something better? I'll tell you exactly why. 1 Peter 13 warns us, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil as a roaring lion walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." But here's what most people miss: a lion doesn't waste energy chasing prey that poses no threat. The enemy only roars loudest at those who are about to break free from his territory. Your increased struggle is proof of your imminent victory. Think about the children of Israel at the Red Sea. Exodus 4 tells us that just when freedom was within reach, Pharaoh's army came charging after them with fury. The Israelites were trapped, water ahead, death behind. That's when they cried out, "Were there no graves in Egypt that you brought us out here to die?" Does that sound familiar? Have you been thinking lately, maybe I should just accept things as they are? Maybe I'm too old for miracles. Maybe God's big moves are for other people, not for someone like me. That's not wisdom talking, beloved. That's fear. That's the enemy's last desperate attempt to turn you around 3 steps from your promised land. Listen to what's really happening in the invisible realm right now. The devil knows something about this Monday that you're just beginning to sense. He knows that heaven has marked it. He knows that what you finally realized has unlocked something in the spiritual atmosphere. He knows that if you make it through this weekend still believing, still standing, still refusing to give up, he loses his grip on you permanently. So what does he do? He intensifies everything. The fatigue you're feeling isn't just physical, it's demonic oppression trying to make you too tired to fight. The loneliness that's been crushing your chest isn't just circumstantial, it's a strategic attack designed to make you feel forgotten by God and forsaken by man. Those regrets flooding your mind at night aren't random memories. They're weapons aimed at your identity, trying to convince you that your past disqualifies your future. But I'm here to tell you what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every attack is confirmation. Every increased pressure is proof. Every intensified struggle is evidence that your breakthrough is not coming someday, it's coming Monday. Job understood this. Right before God restored everything double, Job 4:2 tells us he sat in ashes, covered in boils, tormented by his own wife who told him to curse God and die. His friends accused him. His health failed him. Everything he'd built crumbled. But that darkest moment, that season when it looked like Job had lost everything, that was the final shadow before the dawn of his greatest blessing. Shadows mean the light is right behind you. You see, chosen one, the enemy's strategy is always the same. He can't stop your blessing, so he tries to stop you from receiving it. He can't cancel what God has decreed, so he attempts to make you forfeit it through discouragement. He can't change Monday's divine appointment, so he's working overtime this weekend to convince you it's not real. But let me ask you this. If nothing was about to shift, why would hell be fighting so hard? If Monday was just another ordinary day, why would the enemy waste his ammunition on making you doubt it? If you weren't carrying something dangerous to his kingdom, why would he bother trying to distract you right now? The resistance you're feeling is proof the blessing is close. The fatigue is evidence that you're in the final stretch. The attacks on your mind are confirmation that your breakthrough terrifies the forces of darkness. This is the moment when most people turn back. This is when the majority give up, not because the promise wasn't real, but because the pressure right before the promise became too intense. But you're not most people, are you? You didn't survive 70, 80, 90 years of life's battles just to surrender 3 days before your victory. The enemy's last attempt is just that, his last. After this, he has nothing left. After Monday, everything changes. But you have to hold on through this weekend. You have to recognize warfare for what it is and refuse to believe the lies being whispered in your exhausted mind. If you've felt this strange resistance lately, if the attacks have intensified, if the loneliness has deepened, if regret and fatigue have been pressing down on you harder than ever, I need you to do something right now. Comment below, "I felt it." Let heaven know you recognize the warfare. Let the enemy know his tactics have been exposed. Let this community surround you in prayer. Because what's coming Monday will make every attack you've endured this week look like confirmation that you were always meant to win. But before I reveal what you finally realize that triggered all of this, you need to understand something about Monday itself and why heaven chose this specific day to shift everything in your favor. Beloved, let me tell you something that's going to shake the very foundation of everything you've been carrying. For decades, maybe your entire adult life, you've been waiting for breakthrough like it's some distant event. Some far-off moment when the clouds part, angels sing, and suddenly everything makes sense. But that's not how heaven operates. Breakthrough isn't an event-chosen one. It's a collision. It's the sacred moment when your faith, your maturity, and God's perfect timing finally crash into each other with such force that nothing in your life can remain the same. And this Monday is that collision. Think about Abraham for a moment. Genesis 21 tells us he was 100 years old when Isaac was born. 100. For 25 years, he carried a promise that looked more like a lie with every passing birthday. Every grey hair was a question mark. Every wrinkle was doubt carved into his flesh. Can you imagine? Quarter of a century of waiting, of wondering, of whispering in the dark. God, did I hear you wrong? But here's what Abraham didn't understand during those long, silent years. God wasn't late. God was aligning. He was positioning. He was waiting for the exact moment when Abraham's faith was so refined, so purified, so stripped of self-reliance that when the promise finally came, there would be no question who got the glory. That's you right now. Every year you've waited, every tear you've cried, every morning you've woken up wondering if your prayers were bouncing off the ceiling. It wasn't abandonment. It was alignment. This Monday is when heaven says, now. But I need you to understand something that most preachers won't tell you because it cuts too deep. The reason your breakthrough has taken so long isn't because you weren't ready. It's because the world wasn't ready for what God was preparing to do through you. Let that sink in for a moment. You think you've been waiting on God? No, beloved. God has been waiting on the right moment to unleash you. Because what He's about to release through your life is so powerful, so unprecedented, so outside the realm of normal human experience that if it had come any sooner, it would have destroyed you instead of defined you. Moses was 80 when the burning bush spoke his name. 80 years of preparation for 40 years of purpose. And those 40 years, they changed the course of human history. One man, way past retirement age by today's standards, became the deliverer of millions. Your story shifts this Monday. Not next month, not someday, this Monday. And when I say shift, I'm not talking about some gentle adjustment. I'm talking about a complete rewriting of your emotional memory. Every Monday for the last 50 years that felt like a death sentence, God is erasing that programming from your spirit. Every week that began with dread, with heaviness, with that crushing weight of, here we go again, heaven is deleting that file and installing something new. Peace of mind is returning. Real peace. Not the kind you fake for your family. Not the kind you perform at church. The kind that settles so deep in your bones that when chaos erupts around you, you don't even flinch. Philippians 4:10 calls it, the peace of God which passeth all understanding. It doesn't make sense. It can't be explained. It just is. Your strength is being restored. Isaiah 43:1 promised, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. But here's what most people miss, that word, renew, in Hebrew means to exchange. God isn't just giving you back what you lost. He's exchanging your human strength for His supernatural power. And that calling you thought was too late. That dream you buried under decades of disappointment. That purpose you convinced yourself was for younger people. It's awakening this Monday like Lazarus walking out of that tomb. Jesus didn't whisper, Lazarus, if you feel like it, maybe consider coming out. No. He commanded, Lazarus, come forth. And death itself had no choice but to obey. This Monday, God is commanding your buried dreams, come forth. Here's the spiritual mechanic you need to understand. Right now, in the invisible realm, everything is already shifting. The angels have already received their assignments. The doors are already unlocked. The provision is already released. The healing is already flowing. It's all happening in the heavenly dimension, and this Monday is when it breaks through into your physical reality. Think of it like a dam holding back a massive reservoir. For years, pressure has been building. Water has been rising. And you've been standing downstream wondering why you're still in a drought. But this Monday, that dam breaks. And when it does, everything that's been held back comes rushing toward you with such force that you won't be able to contain it. The wind finally changes direction. And this time, beloved, this time it pushes you forward instead of holding you back. Your family is about to see a version of you they've never met. Your community is about to witness what happens when God finally says yes to someone he's been refining for decades. Your own mirror is about to reflect someone you barely recognize. Because the weight is lifting, the joy is returning, and the anointing is activating. Chosen one, everything shifts this Monday. If you believe, if something in your spirit is confirming that this word is for you, that this Monday belongs to you, then type Septiti Sane right now as your declaration. Let heaven see your faith. Let the angels record your agreement. Let the enemy know his time of tormenting you is over. Because what's coming next will prove that God's delays are not his denials, and his silence was never his absence. Chosen one, if the last few days felt strangely heavy, if your body has been more tired than usual, if anxiety crept in without warning, if sadness wrapped around you like a cold fog you couldn't explain, stay with me, because what you've been feeling isn't random. It's warfare. Let me tell you something that will make the hair stand up on the back of your neck. When heaven shifts your timeline, hell attempts one last disruption. Not because the enemy can stop what God has ordained, but because he knows his window is closing. And in that final moment before your elevation, darkness throws everything it has at your peace. You thought you were losing your mind, didn't you? You thought maybe it was just your age catching up, just the medication not working right. Just another bad week in a lifetime of hard weeks. But what if I told you that the heaviness pressing down on your chest these last few days is actually proof that something massive is about to break open in your favor? Think about it. When have you ever felt spiritual opposition during seasons when nothing was happening? You don't. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on people standing still. But the moment God begins to move you from where you've been stuck for years, suddenly everything goes dark. Suddenly your body aches in places that haven't hurt in months. Suddenly your mind fills with thoughts of giving up right when breakthrough is within reach. This is not coincidence, beloved. This is confirmation. Job understood this warfare better than most. The Bible tells us in Job 10 that God had put a hedge of protection around him, around his household, around everything he owned. Satan himself admitted he couldn't touch Job without divine permission. But when that hedge came down for testing, everything fell apart at once. His wealth vanished, his children died, his body erupted in boils from head to foot, and his own wife told him to curse God and die. But here's what most people miss about Job's story. The attacks didn't come randomly throughout his life. They came precisely when God was about to promote him to a level of blessing he'd never known. The enemy saw what was coming after the test, and he tried to destroy Job before the elevation could manifest. You are living Job's story right now. The fatigue you've been feeling, that's not just your body aging. That's spiritual resistance trying to convince you to sit down and stop believing. The anxiety without cause, that's not just your nerves. That's the enemy whispering that Monday won't be different, that you've hoped before and been disappointed, that you should protect yourself from another letdown by not hoping at all. But I need you to understand something that will change how you see this battle. Just like old injuries ache when the weather changes, old wounds ache when your season is changing. Your spirit is feeling the atmospheric pressure shift between where you've been and where God is taking you. And that shift, dear one, that shift is proof that movement is happening in realms you cannot see. Jesus warned us about this in Matthew 10:10. He said, "The kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force." Not gentle persuasion, not polite requests, violence, forceful opposition. Because every spiritual promotion is contested territory. Every elevation requires you to push through resistance that wants to keep you exactly where you've been. This is why you've been waking up at 3 in the morning with your heart racing. This is why conversations that used to be easy suddenly feel exhausting. This is why even your prayers have felt like they're bouncing off the ceiling. You're in the birth canal, chosen one. And birth is never comfortable. Birth requires pushing through pressure to get to the promise on the other side. The enemy cannot stop your shift. Let me say that again so it sinks deep into your bones. The enemy cannot stop what God has already set in motion. But he will try to make you doubt it. He will send symptoms to make you question if you heard God correctly. He will orchestrate circumstances to make you think you missed your moment. He will use the voices of well-meaning people to suggest you're being unrealistic at your age. 1 Peter 5:10 warns us, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." Notice it says he's like a roaring lion. Not that he is one. He's imitating power he no longer has. His roar is designed to make you run before you realize he has no teeth left to bite you with. The shadow grows darkest right before the sun finds your face again. That's not poetry, beloved. That's spiritual physics. The greatest resistance always comes in the final stretch before breakthrough. The heaviest opposition always hits right before the door swings open. The deepest doubt always whispers loudest the night before your Monday morning miracle. So let me ask you something that's going to cut through every lie you've been believing. If this shift wasn't real, if Monday wasn't marked by heaven as your turning point, why would you be under such intense spiritual attack right now? Why would the enemy be working overtime to discourage you if there was nothing to discourage you from? Your warfare is proof of your promotion. Your battle is evidence of your breakthrough. And the weight you're carrying right now is about to become the wings that lift you higher than you've ever flown. But here's the question that will determine everything. Will you push through these final hours of resistance? Or will you let the enemy convince you to stop believing right before heaven releases what it's been holding? You know what breaks my heart? It's not that you've suffered. It's not even that you've been betrayed, overlooked, or forgotten by people who should have loved you better. What breaks my heart is this: somewhere along the way you forgot who you are. Let me ask you something that might sting. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and recognized yourself? Not your face. Not the wrinkles that tell stories of decades survived. I'm talking about your soul. When was the last time you looked into your own eyes and saw the person God created before the world tried to remake you into something smaller, quieter, more acceptable? Because here's the third realization that's been shaking you awake these past few weeks. Here's the truth that's been disturbing your sleep and making your chest feel tight with something you can't quite name. The real shift was never around you. It was within you. You realized you're not who life convinced you to be. You're who God designed you to be. And dear one, those are two completely different people. Think about this. For how many years have you been carrying labels that were never yours? For how many decades have you answered to names God never called you? Failure, too old, past your prime, damaged goods, washed up, forgotten. How many times did you introduce yourself with someone else's verdict instead of heaven's declaration? People labeled you. Your ex-spouse labeled you. Your children who don't call anymore labeled you. That boss who passed you over labeled you. The church that made you feel invisible labeled you. Even your own mind, after years of disappointment, labeled you. Life wounded you. Oh, how it wounded you. Every door that slammed shut when you thought breakthrough was finally coming. Every relationship that ended in betrayal. Every dream that died before it could breathe. Every prayer that seemed to bounce off heaven's ceiling like God had changed his address and forgot to tell you. Time exhausted you. 70 years of trying. 80 years of pushing. 90 years of surviving when you were created to thrive. You're tired, aren't you? Bone deep tired. The kind of tired that 8 hours of sleep can't touch. The kind of tired that makes you wonder if you have any fight left. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Here's what hell has been working overtime to keep hidden from you. Here's the truth that, once you see it, will unravel every lie you've ever believed about yourself. God never changed the blueprint. Listen to me carefully. Ephesians 2 says you are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in them. Do you hear that? His workmanship. Not your mistakes' workmanship. Not your failures' design. Not society's opinion of who you should be at your age. You are God's masterpiece, and masterpieces don't expire. They don't lose value with age. They become more precious, more sought after, more valuable as time reveals their true worth. But somewhere between childhood dreams and adult disappointments, between who you were meant to be and who circumstances forced you to become, you forgot. You looked at the dust covering the mirror of your soul, and you believed the dust was you. That depression you've carried for 40 years, that's not you. That anxiety that wakes you at 3 a.m., that's not you. That shame about the marriage that failed, the business that collapsed, the children who walked away, that's not you either. Those are things that happened to you, but they are not you. You want to know who you really are. You're the one God spoke into existence before time began. You're the one whose name is written in the Lamb's book of life. You're the one he calls beloved, chosen, set apart. You're the one whose purpose is so threatening to hell that the enemy has spent decades trying to convince you that you're ordinary. But you're not ordinary. You never were. You're not who the divorce papers said you were. You're not who the pink slip claimed you were. You're not who the doctor's diagnosis tried to define you as. You're not who your bank statement suggests. You're not who your loneliness whispers you are in the dark. You are who God says you are, and he's been waiting for you to remember. This is the realization that changes everything. Because once you see who you really are, everything in your life must adjust. Relationships that were built on the false version of you will either transform or fall away. Opportunities that seemed impossible for the person you thought you were will suddenly open up for the person you actually are. Even your enemies will back down when they recognize that you've finally awakened to your true identity. The mirror is being wiped clean, beloved, and what you're about to see will leave you speechless. If this feels like it's speaking directly to you, if something in your chest just cracked open, write, "This is me," in the comments right now. Because you're not reading this by accident. You're reading this because heaven is removing the dust from your mirror, and you're about to see yourself the way God has seen you all along. But the question that will determine everything about this coming Monday is this: once you see who you really are, will you have the courage to live like it? You know what terrifies heaven more than your sin? Your refusal to let go of who you used to be when God is calling you into who you're meant to become. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. God has brought you to a place where the old version of you cannot follow. Not because he's cruel, not because he enjoys watching you struggle, but because what he's prepared for you on the other side of this Monday requires a version of you that doesn't exist yet. You're standing at a crossroad right now, and I don't mean that symbolically. I mean literally, spiritually, prophetically. You are standing at the intersection of your past and your future, and heaven is holding its breath waiting to see which direction you'll choose. For decades you've been walking the same road, the road of just getting by, the road of carrying everyone else's burdens while your own dreams suffocated under the weight, the road of saying yes when your spirit screamed no, the road of tolerating relationships that drained you, routines that numbed you, thoughts that imprisoned you. But something shifted recently, didn't it? You started feeling it, that restlessness, that divine discontent, that whisper in your chest that kept saying, there has to be more than this. That wasn't depression, beloved. That was awakening. God has been dismantling your comfort with your own captivity. He's been making you uncomfortable with the very things you used to tolerate. Those people who drain your peace. Suddenly you can't stand another conversation. Those habits that kept you stuck. Suddenly they feel like chains instead of comforts. Those excuses you've been making for years. Suddenly they sound hollow even to your own ears. Why? Because you finally realize something that changes everything. You realize that staying where you are will cost you more than stepping into the unknown. Think about the children of Israel at the edge of the Red Sea. Behind them, Pharaoh's army charging with murder in their eyes. In front of them, impossible waters with no bridge, no boat, no logical way across. And Moses, 80 years old, holding nothing but a stick, had to make a choice that would define a nation's destiny. Exodus 4:25 records God's words that should shake you right now. Wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel, that they go forward. Did you catch that? God didn't say pray more about it. He didn't say wait for a sign. He said go forward. You've been at this Red Sea long enough, dear one. You've been staring at the impossibility, calculating the odds, weighing the risks, and all the while the enemy of your destiny has been gaining ground behind you. But here's what I need you to understand. You're being pulled into something your old self could never handle. You're being drawn into healthier boundaries that will make people uncomfortable. You're being called into stronger faith that won't make sense to those who've only known you as weak. You're being positioned for clearer discernment that will cost you relationships you thought were permanent. You're being invited into a future you almost gave up on. But that future requires a different you. A you who says no without guilt. A you who chooses peace over people-pleasing. A you who trusts God's timing more than you fear man's judgment. A you who finally stops apologizing for taking up space in a world that God strategically placed you in for such a time as this. Picture this with me. You're standing on a bridge. Behind you is everything familiar, the pain you know, the struggles you've mastered surviving, the limitations you've accepted as permanent. In front of you is the unknown, new territory, new challenges, new versions of yourself that you've only glimpsed in your most hopeful moments. One step forward, and the past cannot reach you anymore. But here's the tension that's gripping your heart right now. That step requires you to consciously choose. Heaven won't drag you across this bridge. God won't force you into your destiny. He will lead you, guide you, make the path clear. But you have to move your feet. 2 Corinthians 5:10 promises, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. But do you see that word, if? There's a condition. There's a choice. There's a moment when you have to decide whether you're going to cling to the old or step into the new. This Monday is that moment for you. Choose peace over chow. Choose clarity over confusion. Choose calling over comfort. Choose growth over guilt. Choose faith over fear. Choose destiny over default. The bridge is shaking because you're standing still, and you weren't designed to stand still. You were designed to cross over. Every fiber of your being knows this. That's why your chest is tight right now. That's why tears are forming. That's why something ancient in your spirit is waking up and roaring. Yes, is it? But the enemy is whispering too, isn't he? He's saying you're too old to start over, too tired to fight for something new, too damaged to be trusted with something better. Those are lies, beloved. Lies designed to keep you on the wrong side of your breakthrough. If you feel God asking you to choose differently this time, if you sense heaven pressing you toward that bridge, if your spirit is trembling with recognition right now, comment below, I choose growth. Let that declaration anchor what's shifting in your soul. Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly what happens when you finally take that step forward, and why hell has been fighting so hard to keep you frozen on this side of your miracle. You want to know something that's going to shake you to your core? While you've been sitting in that quiet house, wondering if anyone remembers your name, God has been moving chess pieces across the board of your life. Pieces you can't see, conversations you haven't heard yet, doors you didn't even know existed. This Monday isn't just about what shifts inside you. It's about what God is aligning behind the scenes. Listen to me, beloved. God didn't just shift your spirit when you finally realized the truth. He shifted the people connected to your destiny. He rearranged the places you'll walk into. He redirected the paths that were leading you nowhere and opened highways you thought were closed forever. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That strange sense that something's different. Like the air around you changed overnight. Like invisible hands have been rearranging furniture in the spiritual realm while you were sleeping. That's not your imagination. That's confirmation. But here's what breaks my heart. So many of you faithful, praying, believing seniors who've walked with God for decades, you look at your life and whisper, I think I missed it. My time has passed. Everyone else got their moment, but mine slipped through my fingers. Stop. Right there. You haven't been forgotten, you've been preserved. Do you hear me? Preserved. Like fine wine aging in a cellar, hidden from those who wouldn't recognize its value. Like treasure buried deep where thieves couldn't steal it. Like a weapon kept in reserve for the battle that matters most. God didn't forget about you during those long, silent years. He was protecting you from premature exposure, from battles you weren't ready to fight, from blessings that would have destroyed you before you were strong enough to steward them. The Bible says it plainly in Isaiah 14:2. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver. Concealed, not abandoned. Hidden on purpose, sharpened in secret, waiting for the precise moment when heaven says, now. And that moment is this Monday. But let me tell you exactly what God is aligning right now, even as I speak these words. There are 3 divine alignments happening in the invisible realm, and within days, maybe hours, you're going to see the evidence with your own eyes. First, there's a conversation coming. Not just small talk. Not another surface-level exchange that leaves you feeling emptier than before. I'm talking about a conversation that opens a door you didn't even know you needed. It might be with someone you haven't spoken to in years. It might be with a stranger whose path crosses yours in what seems like coincidence, but is actually divine appointment. You'll recognize it because the words won't feel random. They'll feel like answers to prayers you stopped praying out loud. Second, there's a person who's about to reappear. Someone from your past who carries a missing piece of your future. Maybe it's someone who hurt you, and God is bringing them back so you can finally release the weight of unforgiveness. Maybe it's someone who once believed in you when no one else did, and their reappearance will remind you of the dreams you buried. Maybe it's someone you've been praying for, and their return will be proof that your intercession wasn't wasted. Watch for them. They're already on their way. Third, there's a moment coming that will confirm everything. A moment so specific, so perfectly timed, that you won't be able to explain it away as luck or chance. It'll be God's signature on this season, His way of saying, I heard every prayer, I saw every tear, I counted every sleepless night, and I'm about to show you that none of it was in vain. You'll know it's from God by the peace it carries, not the peace that comes from getting what you wanted, but the deeper peace that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Can you feel it? Can you sense the lines of light connecting across your timeline? Past mistakes being redeemed, present confusion being clarified, future promises being activated. God is weaving it all together like a master craftsman, and this Monday is when the pattern finally becomes visible. But here's the urgency I need you to grasp. These alignments are time-sensitive. They're not going to wait for you to feel ready. They're not going to pause while you talk yourself out of believing. When that conversation comes, you have to engage. When that person reappears, you have to be open. When that confirming moment arrives, you have to recognize it. How many divine appointments have you missed because you were too busy mourning what didn't happen to notice what was trying to happen? How many times has God sent the very thing you prayed for, but you didn't recognize it because it didn't look the way you expected? Not this time. This Monday your spiritual eyes are wide open. This Monday you're paying attention. This Monday you're ready. Ephesians 3:20 promises that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, not what we expect, not what we planned, abundantly above. That means the alignment coming is bigger than your biggest prayer, better than your best-case scenario, more perfect than anything you could have orchestrated yourself. If you're ready for God's alignment, if you're ready to see what He's been arranging behind the curtain of your circumstances, type onto 1 in the comments right now. Let heaven know you're watching. Let the angels witness your faith. Because what's about to unfold isn't just for you. It's for everyone who ever doubted that God still moves in the twilight years of life. And you're about to become living proof that He does. But the question burning in heaven right now is this: when these 3 alignments manifest, will you have the courage to walk through the doors they open? Chosen one, we've arrived at the moment that separates the survivors from the overcomers. The moment where everything heaven has been preparing collides with everything hell has been whispering. And I need you to listen to me with every fiber of your being, because what I'm about to tell you could determine whether this Monday becomes your breakthrough or just another broken promise. The blessing is yours, the shift is real, the door is open, but fear wants to steal this moment from you before you even step through it. You feel it right now, don't you? That old familiar trembling in your chest. That voice that's been with you for decades, whispering the same poisonous lies. You're too old for this. You've tried before and failed. Why would this time be any different? What if you believe again and get disappointed again? What if this is just another false hope that leaves you more broken than before? I'm talking to the 78-year-old woman sitting in her kitchen right now, staring at this screen, wanting desperately to believe but terrified of the crushing weight of another letdown. I'm talking to the 83-year-old man lying in bed at 2 in the morning, feeling that stirring in his spirit but paralyzed by the fear that he's already missed his window. I'm talking to every senior saint who has watched so many Mondays come and go without change that hope itself feels like a cruel joke. Fear of starting over at your age. Fear of failing when you don't have another decade to recover. Fear of looking foolish. Fear of disappointing yourself one more time. Fear of dying before you see the promise fulfilled. These aren't just anxieties, beloved. These are spiritual assignments sent straight from hell to abort your Monday miracle before it's even born. But let me tell you something that's going to shake the foundation of every fearful thought you've entertained. 2 Timothy 1:10 declares with thunderous authority, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." Read that again. God did not give you that fear. That trembling in your chest, that voice telling you to play it safe, that whisper saying you're too broken, too old, too late, that is not from your Father. That is the enemy's last desperate attempt to keep you from stepping into what's already been released from heaven's throne room with your name written all over it. Fear is always the last enemy before elevation. Always. Every single time God has promoted someone in Scripture, fear showed up at the threshold like a guard dog from hell trying to keep them from crossing over. Think about Moses at the Red Sea. Water in front of him, Pharaoh's army behind him, 2 million terrified people screaming at him. The fear must have been crushing. But Exodus 9:4-3 records his response. Fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord. He held his ground. He held the promise. He held the shift even when everything in the natural screamed run. Think about Joshua standing before the walls of Jericho. Massive fortifications that had never been breached. No siege equipment. No military strategy that made sense. Just a crazy instruction to march in circles. The fear of looking like a fool must have been overwhelming. But he held the shift, and those walls came down. Think about David facing Goliath, a teenager with a slingshot facing a 9-foot killing machine who had been terrorizing trained warriors for 40 days. 1 Samuel 13:45 captures his defiance against fear. Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts. He held the shift, and the giant fell. And now it's your turn, chosen one, your Red Sea moment, your Jericho walls, your Goliath. Except your giant isn't external, it's that voice in your head saying you're too old, too late, too damaged by disappointment to believe one more time. But I need you to do something right now that's going to require every ounce of spiritual courage you possess. I need you to hold the shift. Hold it. Hold it even when your mind screams doubt. Hold it even when your past failures parade before your eyes. Hold it even when logic says this is impossible at your age. Hold the shift. Hold the blessing. Hold the promise until heaven seals it. Because here's what the enemy knows that you're just discovering. This Monday isn't just another day. This is the convergence point where your lifetime of prayers, your decades of faithfulness, your years of silent suffering all collide with God's perfect timing. And if hell can get you to surrender to fear right now, right at the threshold, you'll walk away from the very miracle you've been crying for since your hair was still dark. Romans 4:20 says Abraham staggered not at the promise of God through unbelief, but was strong in faith, giving glory to God. He was 100 years old, beloved. 100. His body was as good as dead. Sarah's womb was dust. But he held the shift. He refused to let fear steal what God had spoken. The question burning in heaven right now is this: will you hold the shift, or will you let fear claim it? If fear has tried to creep back in, if doubt has whispered its poison in your ear in the last 60 seconds, I need you to declare war on it right now. Comment, not this time. Those 3 words are your battle cry, your line in the sand. Your declaration that this Monday, fear loses its grip on your destiny. Because what's waiting on the other side of your obedience is about to blow your mind. Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred moment together, I need you to carry 3 eternal truths with you into this Monday and every day that follows. First, this Monday is not ordinary, it is divinely appointed. Heaven has marked it as your shift point because of what you finally realized. That your age is not your limitation. Your past is not your disqualification, and your wait has not been wasted. Second, the fear that rises at your threshold is not evidence that you're wrong, it's confirmation that you're close. The enemy only fights what threatens his kingdom. Your trembling isn't weakness. It's the rumbling before the breakthrough. Third, you must hold the shift. Hold it with the same faith that carried you through every valley you've already survived. Because if God brought you this far, He will not abandon you at the doorway of your destiny. But hear me clearly, you are not walking this path alone. Right now, as you listen to my voice, the God who spoke galaxies into existence is working in your life. He sees you. He hears you. He has not forgotten your name or your tears or your decades of faithfulness. And beyond that, you have a community here. Thousands of believers who understand your journey, who carry the same calling, who are ready to stand with you in prayer. So let me ask you this. If heaven has already released your Monday miracle, will you have the courage to receive it? Before you go, I want to pray over you with the authority of someone who has witnessed God's faithfulness for decades. Heavenly Father, I place my hand on the shoulder of every precious soul hearing these words. You know their name, their story, their secret battles. Lord, bless them this Monday with supernatural strength. Open doors no man can shut. Heal what medicine cannot touch. Restore what time has stolen. Give them courage to step forward when fear whispers, step back. Father, let Monday morning feel different. Let hope return like breath to dry bones. Surround them with your presence so tangibly that doubt has no room to breathe. And God, seal this shift with your holy fire. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Now I need to hear from you. Comment below and tell me what God spoke to your heart today. Ask your questions. Share your struggles. This community will pray with you. And please share this message with someone who needs to know their Monday miracle is real. Someone who feels forgotten needs to hear they're not alone. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what heaven wanted to pour into you. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Because your breakthrough journey is just beginning. And I'll be here every step of the way. This Monday, everything shifts. Walk into it like the chosen one you are. God bless you mightily. Your finest hour is here.